Okay, so we've been talking about double-blind placebo-controlled trials, and you'll remember that the point of these things is that neither the person taking the pills nor the person treating or evaluating them knows whether they're getting the real thing or the placebo. And that's important, because if I convince you that you're getting a genuine treatment, you might expect to begin feeling better. And that might make you feel better, which is great, but it doesn't depend on the chemical effect of the drug. In fact, it doesn't depend on a drug at all. If I convince you that I'm magic, and by waving my magic wand, I can make you feel better, chances are you will begin feeling at least a little bit better. Psychotherapy has a placebo effect too. Just by talking about your problems and feeling that you are being heard, your mood may improve. And we might even argue about whether that's a placebo effect at all. Maybe that's how therapy is supposed to work. We're social animals. Talking to each other about our problems seems to genuinely help. Our beliefs in the effectiveness of treatments can be incredibly powerful. Many of us really believe that vitamin C is a huge help if you have a case of the common cold. I'm betting that more than half the people watching this really believe this. I'm tempted to believe it too, and when I get a cold, I take vitamin C. And it really seems to work. If I take vitamin C, I know that within 7 days it'll be gone. If I didn't take it, it would take a week. This is stupidly easy to research. You deliberately infect volunteers with cold virus and then have them all swallow pills, but only half of them are getting vitamin C. What happens? No difference. We've all heard this, but most of us still believe in vitamin C anyway. Another example. A lot of people take homeopathic remedies despite knowing how they're supposed to work. These things are diluted to such an extent that it's statistically unlikely there's even a single molecule of the supposedly active ingredient in the preparation. Oh, but the water has memory. No, water does not have neurons and it doesn't have a hippocampus, so probably not. One more example. I get allergies in the spring. Mostly I ride it out. But if I have a bad attack, I'll take half an antihistamine. I start feeling better the moment it's in my mouth, before I've even swallowed it. That's impossible. That is not an antihistamine effect. That is a placebo effect. So expectancy can be a really powerful phenomenon. So we have to control for it. And we do it in medication trials by giving everyone identical pills, and only half of them are getting the real thing. There's just one problem. At the end of the study, go up to your people and say, listen, just for laughs, do you think you got the placebo or do you think you got the study drug? And see if they get it right. And guess what? In an antidepressant trial, they're almost certainly going to get it right. They know which condition they were in. It wasn't blind at all. How? How could they possibly know? What do you think? This is one of those moments where when I tell you, if you haven't figured it out already, it will suddenly be obvious, staring you in the face the whole time. How do they know? Side effects. Placebos typically don't have side effects. They're inert. Most other drugs do. Practically every drug you've taken in your life has given you side effects. If you're in a study and you're suddenly getting a weirdly dry mouth, or drowsiness, or agitation, or nausea, or diarrhea, or you're dizzy when you stand up in a way that you weren't before, you're going to guess that you're probably on the active medication. Well, fine. Who cares? Well, the whole point of the study is that you don't know because of expectancy effects. If you're getting side effects, you're going to suspect that you're getting the real drug. So you'll probably expect even more of an improvement. And at some level, if you're swallowing pills, and unlike most pills you've ever taken, you don't have any side effects, you might think, I must be in the dud condition. And that may influence your response. So even if we get a difference between placebo and drug, it might just be the difference in expectancy, not a result of the chemical action of the drug. Now, we don't expect much of a placebo effect with some drugs, anti-cholesterol drugs, for example. You take some homeopathic remedy that you really believe in, probably not going to change your cholesterol one bit. But if the effect you're looking for is a subjective one, like your mood or your energy level, there you can get a really healthy placebo effect. So, does this actually happen? Well, we know we get a strong placebo effect for antidepressants, for example. The improvement in the placebo condition is usually about 3/4 as strong as the improvement in the medication condition in published trials. Published trials, note. More on that in another post. And some authors, like Irving Kirsch, believe that this unblinding effect, where people know which drug they were taking, may account for at least some of the advantage in the drug condition. So how could you control for that? Well, the answer for that too is pretty obvious. Think about it. Instead of prescribing completely inactive placebos, we could use substances that will give you side effects, but that are known not to produce the effect that you're looking for. So if you're looking at antidepressants, for example, use a drug that is known not to have an antidepressant effect, but does give the person side effects. An example might be a beta blocker, which produces some symptoms, but doesn't cross into the brain, so it can't change brain chemistry much. That's not a common practice. Not many studies have done it. Kirsch reports on a couple, and in those cases, that advantage for antidepressants over placebo vanishes pretty much completely. But there are so few studies, I don't think it's really that persuasive. It's certainly suggestive, though. So you can see our problem. Double-blind placebo-controlled trials are really useful, and although they cost a huge amount to do, they're conceptually nice and simple. But even with something as elegant as this, there's room for problems. And in case you think I'm being unfair to pharmaceutical research, keep in mind, many of these same problems apply to psychotherapy research. How do we get a comparison group for therapy? And how do we make it equally persuasive as our actual therapy? That's arguably even harder to do than when you're assessing medication. When you're looking at human distress, there are so many potential sources of bias. That doesn't mean that the science isn't useful or essential, but it does mean that we have to use it thoughtfully and carefully, and we have to consider all the potential pitfalls. If we have a double-blind placebo-controlled trial, it better be double-blind. If you like some of these ideas, my book, How to Be Miserable, 40 Strategies You Already Use, is available from any bookseller, online or in person.